The BCN Liberation Triangle. Black Christian nationalism seeks to change society in order to accomplish the liberation of black people, and realizes that we as a people are engaged in a struggle for power and for our survival. We utilize the BCN Liberation Triangle as a godly symbol to Kasanyawatu and bring black people together to create oneness and unity amongst our people, to build a nation within a nation, where we control our own institutions that governs our lives. The Liberation Triangle is a symbol of Kodi, where we voluntarily tax ourselves to fund the black nation, and is the financial basis of building a nation. The Liberation Triangle is also a symbol of Kazi, which is communal work and responsibility, where we collectively work together on a common program that's designed to liberate the African diaspora from the oppression, exploitation, and brutality of our colonial oppressors. Through Kasanyawatu, Kodi, and Kazi, we will once again build the kingdom of heaven on earth for our people throughout the African diaspora. As black Christian nationalists all over the world, we pledge to let the power of the Liberation Triangle work its wonders in us, to take the power of the Liberation Triangle to African people across the world. May God and the black nation be our witness that we exist to take black Christian nationalism to black people everywhere.
Much has happened since we worshiped together on last Sunday morning. At that time, I tried to emphasize the very simple fact that a movement once started runs its course. There's little that you can do to change it, or to stop it, or to make it something else. A march which began almost 15 years ago in Montgomery, Alabama, has now reached Newark, New Jersey, Detroit, Michigan, and almost 100 other cities from coast to coast. And this is the same black revolution that started when Rosa Parks refused to move in Montgomery, Alabama. The same one. Same black revolution that drew black college students from the colleges of the North to go south to participate in freedom rides and sit-in demonstrations. The same black revolution. The black revolution, the movement, the freedom struggle. It's the same thing going on now, today, in Newark, New Jersey, and Detroit, and 100 other cities. It's the same thing. But people are reacting differently because a movement grows up. A movement comes of age. A movement someday begins to come to grips with reality. The President of the United States has asked us this morning to join with Christian people everywhere, the churches of America, in a day of prayer for racial peace. And by racial peace, I know he means the end of racial conflict, the end of racial violence. And I know that in many black churches all over the United States, there will be pious exhortations to black congregations. Black preachers will read from the Bible and misinterpret what Jesus said and the message of the Old Testament. And they will caution people that this thing has gone too far. It hadn't gone too far. It hadn't gone far enough yet. because we are still in chains. We are still in chains. It hadn't gone far enough. And black preachers in black churches who try to make it seem that the message of Jesus Christ is a message of reconciliation with injustice misunderstand the Old Testament and the message of a black Messiah. We cannot pray for racial peace this morning, not in this church, because we know whom we serve. We are followers of a black Messiah who 2,000 years ago tried to bring black men together that they might fight for their freedom. So today we do not pray for racial peace. I have to tell you what God says. Jeremiah was telling them, in terms of the way you've been acting, he's going to tear up the temple and the city, because both of them are wrong. That's what he's saying in the things that I will make this house like Shiloh. That's the temple in the north that they desecrated and destroyed. So everybody'd have to come to the temple in Jerusalem. He's telling them, if it doesn't make any difference about how big the church is, how much money you got, how many people up there hollering amen, that doesn't make any difference. He said, God will destroy the temple as well as the city. I'll make this house like Shiloh, and I'll make this city a curse for all the nations of the earth. You know, when you get away from the thing that God was trying to tell us through Jesus Christ, that all men in the sight of God have a certain right to dignity. And when somebody decides that he's going to build a civilization, a world, and he's going to deny black men the right to that kind of dignity, then God is going to act to destroy that very civilization and that very nation. I'll make this city a curse for all the nations of the earth. That was true then. Jeremiah said, Babylon is going to come in here and destroy this temple, wipe out, make desolate these cities, and take you into captivity. That's what Jeremiah told them. They didn't believe him. You know, they met, they talked around, they held meetings, they said that couldn't be, but it happened. Anytime a people try to destroy God's chosen people, they are bound to find desolation is their reward. We are God's chosen people. God is with us in our struggle. Our freedom struggle, our movement, our black revolution is in the hands of God. And the things that we do with the guidance, with the strength, criminal business that they're going to make so much out of. Any effort on the part of the powerless to take power is criminal. Isn't that right? If you don't have any power and you're trying to take power, anything you do is criminal. With the support of God, America's whole fabric, and ask, who is the criminal? And when you read about our criminal actions, ask yourself again and again, who is the criminal? Who's the criminal in Vietnam? We, the United States, our government. This United States is the criminal in Vietnam. They have invaded a nation. They are killing people daily. America is the criminal in Vietnam. And yet they talk of criminal acts in Newark and in Detroit. Who is the criminal? America was a criminal nation from its very beginning. The dungeons and jails of Europe were emptied of criminals to send over here in the first place to make a nation. They stole the land from the Indians, which was a criminal act. Everything that America has was stolen from somebody else, a criminal act. Everything in the world is built on criminal activity. Y'all don't understand that. Everything in the world, the French Revolution, was criminal. A group of people who had nothing fighting against the government for power. It was criminal until they won. Do you understand? When you win, then it's not criminal anymore. Stand it after they win. And let me tell you, when we win, we're not going to stand it either. Difference, it's almost a reversal of roles. Because now he's got to redefine his relationship with us because we are different. We don't react like we used to react. We don't think like we used to think. So he's got to do something about it. Fear is gone, I think, essentially because we are in the process of becoming a black nation. Increasingly, the white man's world in which we live, a black nation within a white man's world, increasingly the white man's world has become an enemy world, recognized and accepted as such. An enemy world from which we have been systematically excluded. An enemy world, and which we now despise and reject. We have been excluded, and now we despise and reject that world from which we were excluded. They can't exclude us anymore because we don't want to get in. Now we're in our own world, in our own nation. And you'd be surprised, sometimes you just think now in your own mind, sometimes you feel uncomfortable because you have to go out into his enemy world. You wish you could just stay with us all the time. That's true. You go out and he looks at you, you know, you got your afro or your natural, and he looks at you when you get on the bus or something. You say, I would to God I could just stay with my own people. I didn't have to come out here and look at him, because I don't like the way he looks any more than he likes the way I look. This is a strange new world that we're in. We have been excluded, but you can't exclude a man when he doesn't want to come in. You can't tell a man, you can't come in my house when he doesn't even want to come on your street. A burnt out building, you know, that worries them. They can do something about that. They can tear it down, they can level the ground, they can put up a new building, they can have architects draw new plans, figuring that somehow they can do something with this physical thing that's going to make us satisfied and make us act like we used to act. Nothing they can do with that piece of brick and stone and steel is going to make us act any way like they want us to act. Because that doesn't have anything to do with it. We are different. And unless they deal with us, they can put up all the brick and stone and steel they want. And it won't stay too long. White journalists are the most confused people in the world today. They haven't interpreted one thing accurately in the last year. Not one thing, not one event, not one happening. You read Newsweek magazine or Time magazine, you're reading a fairy tale. Hans Andersen is closer to the truth. They just don't understand it. They don't know what's happening. They have no key upon which to hang it. You know why? Because in their heart and mind, we're inferior. We couldn't feel like they feel. We couldn't ache like they ache. We couldn't bleed like they bleed. They can't understand it. So they have to make up some kind of reason for the things we do. And the answer is so simple. All they have to do is say, these black people are black, but they are just exactly like we are. And then they'd understand the whole thing. Because they wouldn't have sit down for what we've been taking for 10 minutes, and they know it. Now, the students had a national convention. The same student organization that the CIA financed for years. That same student convention was held this year, and some black students went to that convention. And they said, I don't know who's paying your bills, and we don't care, but we just want to tell you one thing. If you want us to have anything to do with the student movement in the United States, you're going to endorse black power right here. You know what they did? They endorsed it. That's all liberals, left, new left, old left, all kind of left. And some black folks went to that convention. Now they, when you get with them white folks who thinking right, that's what they say. All them other white folks, they're wrong, but we with you, we with you. And they set up the convention just like any other white people set up a convention. They did all the plan and arranged everything, and they said on Saturday we're going to have a ghetto day. A ghetto day. We're going to let black folks, come in by bus from all the cities, and we're going to have a great big showpiece meeting. And we're going to let Rap Brown come down there and rap a while. That's a ghetto meeting. Got nothing to do with the convention. Completely off and apart from the convention. Nothing to do with the planning. Nothing to do with what the political procedures are going to be, with political realities. Now, just a ghetto day. White folks been having ghetto days for 400 years. And these good brothers, they went and told them, now listen, white folks, ghetto days are a thing of the past. Either we in this convention or we ain't in it at all. They wrote a beautiful little thing. Even when the paper got through messing with it, you can still understand it. We as black people believe that a United States system that is committed to the practice of genocide, social degradation, the denial of political and cultural self-determination of black people cannot reform itself. There must be revolutionary change. And they made 13 specific demands, all black power demands. They said, now either you do it or we gone. Now, they liberal, they radical, they left, they new left, old, everything. There wasn't nothing they could do. Because without black people, there is no revolutionary movement in America. There is no revolutionary movement in America. We are the revolution. We are the revolution. There are some white people who are poor, but they're white. And I don't say that I get on an airplane with any certainty that I'm going to get off in the normal way. But if I was afraid, I wouldn't get on. I've decided that getting where I'm going is more important. So everybody's not afraid. I'm just telling you that because I know a whole lot of you have guilt feelings about being afraid. You ain't afraid. Not long as you're doing what has to be done. America is set on a disaster course. It's important that we understand this psychology. Because America is set on a disaster course of racial conflict and violence, from which there seems to be no escape. Understand that. You've got to get yourself ready for that kind of disaster course which America has accepted for itself. A disaster course. The black man cannot accept America as it is. Period. The white man refuses to make the changes necessary to permit the black man to live in America as a man with dignity and justice. Period. Those are two facts. We will not accept conditions as they are. The white man will not accept the change. There is no solution except open conflict. This hits a new low even for Detroit newspapers. H. Rap Brown, who touched off assaults and nearly a small riot during his recent Detroit visit. Now, we don't have to read that because we were all there. And then it goes on with the Klan breaking up the elections in Mississippi and voting 20 times, each Klan man voting 20 times, the complete breakdown of law and order. And then they say, but there is a connection as far as the Brown mentality and the Klan mentality are concerned. If it is to be accepted that Brown is privileged to foment deadly civil disorder, then it must be accepted equally that the Klan is privileged to wreak injustice by interfering with an election. Now that's the kind of lie that the white man is going to tell more and more. And you'll find that more and more the white man in this country is adopting the Hitler philosophy that don't care what the truth is, get a great big lie and tell it over and over and over again till the whole world believes that it's true. Now that's a lie. Outright lie. There is a profound and basic difference between H. Rap Brown and the Klan. A basic difference. Brown says one simple thing, that black people have to fight against injustice by all means necessary. That's the truth. Now that's what he says. We have got to establish justice in this country by all means necessary. That's what Brown says, Rap Brown. Now here's what the Klan says. We have got to preserve injustice in this country by all means necessary. Do you see the difference?
Organized 33 years ago. We knew what we wanted to leave. We knew the changes we wanted to make, where we wanted to go. We accepted the covenant. We accepted the promise. We believed in the promise of God that if we did those things which we felt to be necessary, that God's support would be with us. But we did not feel that it was going to be without sacrifice, without effort, that God was going to provide a promised land ready-made without any effort on our part. We knew what we wanted, but we were prepared to make those sacrifices necessary to secure it. The first move that we made was the move to secure the National Training Center in Detroit, in the Central region. We had secured the Cultural Center, and the next move was the National Training Center, but the Training Center required tremendous sacrifice, more than we had ever conceived possible. We were talking then in terms of millions of dollars to purchase a National Training Center in which many members would be able to live and which would serve as a center and a basis for training new members and sending members out for the expansion of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church. We had a clear vision, and members worked hard to make it possible to secure the down payment on the first building, the first large building that we undertook to secure. Members worked night and day trying to raise the funds necessary. And no one felt put upon or mistreated or felt that God had neglected us because we had to work to get the first major step in the kind of expansion and the kind of building of a promised land that we were seeking. Members had grown weary of meeting in the cultural center and then being dispersed for the evening to go to all parts of the city. They wanted a place where they could live together. It was a real sense of purpose. We couldn't conceive of a promised land in which our people who were trying to build it would be in poverty and misery. It was necessary that we understand that the promised land would provide happiness, security, and prosperity. The passage of time has dangers for a group engaged in a common purpose. That which was clear 33 years ago, which was clear at the point of making the basic change by securing the training center and residence hall, the things that were clear at that time are not so clear today. The second generation, that is, the generation of children who were born in the nation, our children, do not understand. For the most part, there is no real understanding of the reason the nation was built, is being built, or any understanding of the reason for the rules, the procedures which make it possible for the nation to exist. Where we realized at the beginning that it was necessary to sacrifice, to work, to labor, to build a promised land, the second generation, our children, feel that it's their right, that their parents ought to provide it, that the nation owes them an obligation, that the promised land is something that they inherit, for which they do not have to struggle, for which there are no sacrifices required. And so the second generation is a point of weakness, and the generations that do not understand the reason for the things that the nation is doing are not only points of weakness, but points of the possibility always of the destruction of the dream which led to the building. To become larger and larger, to include more and more people, to take more and more people into the fellowship, into the communal fellowship of the promised land which we were engaged in building on earth. We were not building it only for ourselves, but for black people. And we hoped eventually that the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church would include all black people in one great communal society, a Pan-African world community. And this is the dream. And when the second generation, our children and their children, do not understand and think only of what they themselves can get out of the nation, they destroy the possibility of success. Because we destroy the covenant by which, from city to city, we're trying to build a certain kind of world. And so it's not just too bad when our children fail to grasp the purpose of the things we're doing. It's catastrophic, because when the first generation passes away, the second generation will let it die. Then what we've put together will have no significance whatsoever, because there'll be no people who believe in it. Only a group of selfish individuals who are trying to utilize it for their own benefit. To say that everywhere we go, we build an urban enclave, then we build a network of farms in order that the urban enclaves can have a source of food no matter what happens to this civilization which the white man is so eager to destroy, that we will be able to live and to eat a promised land in which there is an element of security. And this is not an easy task. It's not easy to build urban enclaves, to make people understand what an urban enclave is, a place where people can live with security and peace and prosperity. It's not easy to get the funds together to build Beulah Land Farms, the farm network. Most people think of a farm as the farm they saw a long time ago when they were children someplace. But to build the kind of farms we're talking about, we're talking in terms of tens of millions of dollars. Not a little farm, where a man goes out in the field and plows and plants and harvests, but a farm that's large enough to raise food for thousands of people off in other places, with machinery, with food processing machinery, with transportation machinery so that it can be trucked into cities where people are. We have no base for our very existence in this world unless we put together the kind of promised land that Jesus talked about, the kind of promised land mentioned in the Bible, the kind of promised land that those who set up the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church believed in and dreamed of building for black people throughout the world. It's not an easy task. That's the covenant. And we got to keep it. And every time you neglect the things that you're supposed to do, you're neglecting your contract with God. Now, if you're not going to obey the contract, then you're disobeying God, and you can expect to be destroyed. More responsibility. And they can't do the little job with the little responsibility that it requires, and that they want a bigger job. They think they're being mistreated. Being mistreated. There's no shortcut across the wilderness. You just got to do the things that have to be done. We have a hard time getting a decent group leader who takes being a group leader seriously. Not just to be called a group leader, but to do what a group leader has to do, to take care of a group of people, to try to lead a group of people, to help them, to support them. We find it very difficult to find a decent group leader. But we find a lot of people who say, I ought to be a group leader. We find it almost impossible to find a decent coordinator, somebody who can coordinate area work. But everybody says, I ought to be a coordinator because I got the ability to be a coordinator, but you've never shown it. And then you say, well, man, I'm weary, I'm getting old. Well, I don't know what getting old is myself. But I know everyone grows weary at some time. If you're going to do anything, you're going to get tired. And what do? Rest and go on with what you're doing. But you don't get weary and then start playing games. Oh man, I've been working so hard, I've been working so long. Time for somebody else now to come in and take over the load, take over the burden. Doesn't work like that. You work up till the time you drop. If you expect anything to happen. Nobody's going to take over the load for you. You have to take it over and carry it as long as you can. And when you can't, that means you're ready for the undertaker. Everybody grows weary at some time. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And if you keep on putting one foot in front of the other, you'll be surprised how easy it is to get across the wilderness of any kind. But when you start thinking about how long this trip is and how long I've been on this journey, let somebody else do it. What you going to do, sit down in the middle of the desert? You'll die for sure. The worst thing you can do in the desert is stop moving, sit down. The sun will eat you up. Well, I don't know, look like somebody else could carry the load. You want somebody else to carry you the rest of the way across the wilderness. We're so ridiculous. Make yourself an ark. That's what God told Noah. Find the promised land. That's what God told Moses. Preach to these people. Teach them and heal them. That's what God told Jesus. And what we have to do is to do the same kind of things that Jesus tried to do, that Noah tried to do, that Moses tried to do. We've got to try to build those kind of things that are necessary if a promised land is to come into being. And we're too lazy and trifling and good for nothing to do the things that have to be done.